fuck's sake. What we gonna do, what we gonna do? For fuck's sake, the world's gone mad and I'm sharing it with you. For fuck's sake, so sit right down, grab a glass of wine, maybe a cup of tea and some chocolates, and join me for another For Fuck's Sake.
Welcome to a very special For Fuck's Sake. Special because I've got away from the piano. Aretha is lying underneath it, but here I am with Sir Franklin Owen, looking absolutely stunning, on the couch, to introduce the final, oh no, it's not, is it, Matt? It is. The final episode. The final part in my conversation with John Cleary. No, boo, I hear you moan, and no, I don't. But I personally, I could have just carried this on. It could be like, a 20-part series. This is the final episode. So we found out so much from this wonderful man, truly. It's been like a history lesson in music, but that's the kind of thing I absolutely love. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. As much as Franklin has. He's overwhelmed with excitement as the prospect of seeing part 4. But the final part, well, what else could I ask, really? A lot more is the answer. But what I wanted to ask him is, how did, if anybody's ever seen him, and I know some people out there have seen him with the Monster Gentleman. Yes, the Monster Gentleman. They were this. Remember, I said he was a Grammy Award winning. Well, he won it making a record with these guys, and I just wanted to know a bit more about that. So here's the backstory behind what became this Grammy Award winning record, and how he met the fabulous chaps that made a fabulous backing band. Take it away, John. I'm going to jump forward now. I mean, from Mac and all the people that you've worked with, and all the amazing artists that you've worked with, and then ending up going on the road with Bonnie Raitt and being beloved by Bonnie, and with all the people that you've worked with. I remember the first time I saw you were solo, and I was just like, just my first reaction. I just hope you remember that look for the rest of time.
I remember thinking, who's that girl?
Who's that girl with the giant mouth and the cross eyes that looks like she's a goldfish? No, it must be Harry's wife. So that was number one, and I was just like, oh well, that's not right. That's not fair. And then the second time I saw you was with the Monster Gentleman. That was my second thing of seeing you, and I'm not quite sure, but I do want to hear, and maybe I know this. I want to know how you met them, how you found Cornell and Dee, how this happened, how this came about.
So one day I was cycling home and crossed Frenchman Street, and there was a gospel band playing at the Café Brazil, and to me it sounded like Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions, like a gospel version of Curtis Mayfield.
Oh my gosh.
With lovely 4-5 part harmonies, and they were played very quietly. And it was the Friendly Travellers. And so I listened to the whole set and chatted to the two young guys who were about the same age as me. The other guys were much older. And then I went back the next time they were playing, and I would drop in. And then there was a keyboard there one night, and they knew, because from talking, they knew that I played. And they invited me to sit in, and it really worked. And anyway, we became friends. And then one year at Jazz Festival, instead of doing what I usually did, which was hire the old professional musicians and do New Orleans R&B stuff, I called these guys and said, hey, do you want to come play with me at Jazz Festival, but we're going to have to put a lot of time in rehearsing. And they said, well, we've been waiting for you to call us for ages. What took you so long?
Oh,
and so we started rehearsing. And they'd only ever played in coffee shops and in church, and knew nothing about professional playing, but we needed a drummer. They recommended a drummer that they liked, who was playing with Gary Brown on Bourbon Street. So one night we all went down to Bourbon Street, and Gary invited us all to sit in, so we got up and played with this drummer Jelly Bean. And so Jelly Bean was great, full of fire, a lot of soul, a lot of great chops, a really nice guy. And that became the band. And I didn't have a name for them, but we needed a name. And I was overjoyed and over the moon to find out that my hero musician, Johnny Guitar Watson, was coming to town. And it was the first time I'd ever actually got to see him. I've been a fan since I was a kid when John Peel used to play him on the
You
on the
got
radio.
to see him.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm a bit
yeah.
angry now. I'm a bit angry because I haven't done that.
Oh, well, I was in the front row with Cornell, and he introduces the band, and he introduced the sax player, I think it was. He said, he's a sax player and an absolute monster gentleman. And I thought, hold on, that's it, that's the name of the band.
That's where it came from. I didn't know.
Oh yeah, Johnny Guitar Watson gave us the name.
Oh, the man is like, he just keeps giving. He keeps giving.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought that's the name, the absolute monster gentleman.
And I have to just encourage anybody that doesn't know or hasn't seen or hasn't heard John with the absolute monster gentleman. It's sublime. It's beautiful, beautiful. John Porter. So another Brit. Let's just throw another Brit on the fire, shall we?
Yes.
In our warming ourselves on the.
Of course.
Well, not literally. That would be awful. That'd be terrible.
Hideous.
That'd be hideous. So another gorgeous happenstance. How did you meet him? Phenomenal producer that he
John
is.
Porter is a record producer and musician, and our paths crossed purely by coincidence. When at a time when I was living in New York, and I was invited to Keith Richards' house.
Oh my!
For July the 4th barbecue, and I'm never much of a fan of the Rolling Stones. I'm sure they're all nice chaps and everything, but
Can I tell you just
wasn't my
how
cup of
ridiculous
tea.
that is as a line? I was invited to Keith Richards' house for
Yeah.
a 4th of July barbecue.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know him, but somebody who did know him knew me, and I was like a mutual friend, and so I was invited along. And I almost wasn't going to go because I didn't think it'd be my cup of tea, really. But I did, and I'm glad I did because I met two really nice people. Keith Richards, who actually ended up, I got on really well with. We ended up with me, Keith Richards, and John Porter sitting around his table and talking about music. And I'd never met John Porter before, but we hit it off, and he seemed like a nice guy. And I said I'd send him a copy of my record. And my first record had just come out. This was in 1990. My record came out in 89, and I just moved to New York in November of that year. And and then didn't hear anything more, and I actually had to leave the country and go back to England. And on a return visit, I went to my old apartment in New York and found some mail that had never been forwarded, in amongst which was a year-old letter from John Porter with a copy of this Taj Mahal record that he'd made, and saying how much he liked my record, we should stay in touch. And I rang him up and said, you probably don't even remember who I am, but you must think I'm and if you do, you must think I'm rude because you sent me this
A year ago.
thing a year. I've only just received it. And it happened at that time I was in New York and I was actually stranded. I'd gone for a production deal which had turned bad, and I was basically
I was going to ask you, what would take you to New York?
I'd gone
That
over
was
to do a production deal, and then the guy that had brought me over then basically disappeared, and there was no money and so he said, what are you doing? And I explained this to him, and he sent me a plane ticket that afternoon to come to LA. I'm doing a Maria Muldaur record. And by coincidence, I'd never been to LA before, it was my first time, and I took a taxi to the studio, and they were recording a song of mine.
Oh my gosh.
Miriam Muldaur was doing one of my songs.
Wow.
And so a funny coincidence. And so John hooked me up with a gig at the Hollywood Athletic Club where they rented a piano.
Yeah.
And I played 3 or 4 consecutive nights and made enough money to get my flight back home.
How great.
And so then I'd start sending John songs. I was in England, I had visa problems and couldn't get back in the States. And he was producing a Taj record, and he played songs to Taj, and Taj dug them. And he said, would you mind if Taj did a couple of your songs? And I was delighted because Taj was one of my childhood heroes. And then he said, well, can you come over and play on the record? I said, I'd love to, but I can't get in the States. He said, well, let's see if we can figure that out.
Oh my
And so the record label got me a visa to come in. And so then I'm in the studio with Taj, and then Bonnie was a guest on one of the songs, and so that's how we met. And then I ended up getting a job with Taj, and was with Taj for 2 records and 2 years of touring, and then Bonnie called me and that was my ticket back into the States and also out of New Orleans, because until that point I'd just been within New Orleans, and it's not like the world wasn't like it is now.
Yeah.
New Orleans at that point was really cut off from the rest of the country and under the radar, you know, and so escaping the gravitational pull of Orleans Parish was difficult, and that was my sort of ticket out into the big wide world.
To the rest of the world. And then you toured. I mean, you toured for all that. I mean, you toured for years.
I've been on tour ever since. Really.
Yeah. So my final, I guess my thought is I haven't even mentioned the fact you won a Grammy, which we were all hopping up and down about. We're so excited that happened because it seems so right. And there's rarely times when things are right, if you know what I mean. It's like there are so many people whose music I love so much and think, oh, come on, this is just. But of course, it never gets anyway. I think that was just one of those marvelous moments where it's just like, okay, this is great.
Yeah,
this
very
is great.
unexpected.
Yeah, was it really? Totally unexpected. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I'm become so used to being the round peg that doesn't fit in the square hole. That
we were
I
beside
kind of
us.
wear that as a badge of honor. I was almost insulted when they gave me a Grammy.
We were so shocked.
Tragedy struck.
Tragedy
when
struck
they
when
gave me a
you
Grammy.
became a Grammy winner. It is the truth. It's like we couldn't believe it when we heard it. It's like
No, I couldn't quite believe it either.
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But now, I mean, COVID
Hasn't made any difference to anything.
Does it ever? It's like when people say, get on these TV shows and you'll sell lots of, you'll stream balls. No. But ultimately, it's still a great thing that happened. Now, how has COVID treated you? I think, has it been like, have you been incredibly creative? Have you enjoyed the time off from touring? Has it given you a break? How does it feel having gone through the last 14 months?
If I was to be completely honest, I think it's sort of just given me license to be my really lazy self. You know, it's given me an excuse to do what I would naturally do if I was sort of independently wealthy, or if I, was inherited loads of money. I'd be one of these useless. Well, perhaps I wouldn't, but no. I started out with great zest and vigor, and I sanded some of the wooden shutters. I felt very proud of myself. That was day one. Day two, I made a cup of tea and sat in front of Netflix, and that was the MO for the rest of it. No, that's not strictly true. I made 2 records.
Yes.
I've made 2 records, and have enjoyed enormously a chance to sleep in my own bed for consecutive nights. There was one year, I think I calculated, I slept in my own bed like 15 nights.
Oh my good grief.
I was on tour and on tour buses and in airports, and that's what you do. I'm a wandering minstrel.
Yes.
The second oldest profession in the world.
The music we love, the music from the city, of course, it's wrapped around the oldest profession in the world,
yes.
and that's what makes it so flipping great. Is that it's sort of Storyville and the lovely ladies of the night, and some great sexy music that goes with it. It just goes hand in hand. It's the stuff that I loved it when I first heard this stuff. When I first heard Jelly Roll Morton, I was just like, what is this?
I know. Well, the minute you do this.
Oh, yes.
The salty blue notes, that's...
Oh, it's so blue, and it is basically remove the clothes now.
It's got intimations of something that's forbidden.
It's filthy. Come on.
And that has basically that was the flame that has kept burning through the very first time it got to me, right to whenever I sit down at the piano now, lifetime later.
I see that.
But
I see it, absolutely.
But the blues.
Yeah.
The fact that the music. What makes music so special is it exists in a world beyond language, but nevertheless we still have to use language to try and convey what it does to us. and so you're limited. But they've tried hard, and some terms stick, and one that works is the blues. The fact that the color blue or purple or that's the color of, or scarlet red, that's the color of some of these notes and what they do. And it's the juxtaposition of a major third and a minor third. One's sad and one's happy, but what happens when you do that? You play them together. It's dissonant, but then you put it in the context.
It's phenomenal.
It's the
phenomenal.
swamps. And here we are.
It is.
It does feel like, if I sit down with a nice piano like this, it's like having a beautiful woman flirting with you with sort of an intimation of some mischief on the horizon.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's the feeling that I get when I'm playing all this stuff, and it's invigorating. It's good, stimulating.
Yeah, I agree, and it's I'm very it's New Orleans, of course, like the South, is so the history is so dark and awful, and yet, of course.
Yes, but there's spirit in the face of adversity.
Spirit in the face of adversity,
that
and
comes
what
through.
What came and what comes and what came out of this is something so glorious and remarkable that has affected the world. And that's the point that you made, which I feel so clearly is like it has changed the landscape of our world and through the most beautiful medium I believe that there is, which
and
is
they
music.
did it here. What really made it happen here was not just the blue notes, but the rhythm.
The rhythm
Funk.
is like nothing
If you
else.
take the blue notes and then mix up some funk, that's the recipe. If you can get it right.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite hard to get it right. But this is where they got it. Not just here, they do it in Cuba too.
Yeah. Well,
And they do it in Ireland. And there's a few parts of the world where they just get that thing right. There's all these different combinations, slightly different spices and flavors they're working with, but they get the same thing, and it just gets you right there, right between the ribs.
Below right the
the
solar
belt.
plexus. Yeah, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing.
Nice to take time and smell the roses sometimes,
It is. Well, this has been. I have smelt the roses with you today. I've not smelt my cheese. I have smelled my cheese, mother. I have actually smelt the roses here today, and it has been an absolute delight. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Friend,
No, it's fun.
to share the thing. I mean, I figured that there was some great stories in here, but they've surprised even me, and it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much on behalf of all the For Fuck's Sake fans. For fuck's sake. And from me, really, thank you. This has been so wonderful. Would you play us out, please, with one of yours, one of something, what you would like to?
Whoa.
Yeah, anything you want, my love.
I'm just going to make something up.
Go on.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. It's not right. It's just not right. It really was an incredible pleasure talking with John Cleary and hearing him play and you know, revealing, experiencing what I knew was probably under there. I had a feeling, like I said right from the start, I had a feeling that this man who I've shared so many laughs with, trips abroad, so many dinners, laughing our asses off. I mean, just having the best time. But I always knew there was so much more that I didn't know underneath. And that, I think, is the same with most of us. When you get down to the nitty gritty, you know people. You think you've known them your whole life, don't you? And then you realize sometimes they'll say something and you go, what? What? And you realize there's so much that you had no idea had gone before they'd experienced that had existed. So anyway, that was one, I hope, which will be one of many, Matt, I think, of the kind of people that I love talking to and the people that I love, you know, if you don't already know them, exposing to the world, because they're just remarkable people. Now, it's so nice to hear him play. It almost feels like a travesty, like it's wrong that I would play anything, that I would perform after that. It's such a beautiful thing, but I'm going to anyway, because that's the kind of yeah, weird girl I am. But anyway, I have to, because I've got one more song. Yes, I do. It is September. We're deep into September now. There's no fighting this anymore. We're about to get punched in the face by winter. I think it's October the 1st. I think that's it. I think we know that, not obviously in LA, but those of us in Britain, or who will be in Britain, in many parts will know that it's coming. It's around the corner, and it's going to hit us hard. So it seems to me that when you're in September and you are hanging on to the joys, the memories, the gift that has been yet another, albeit very strange, summer, now is the time to cover this song, to perform this song by one of my favorite bands of all time. It all comes back to New Orleans. Yes, I saw them at Jazz Fest in New Orleans years ago. Thought the stage was going to collapse. We were all dancing so hard. We went berserk, people on the stage. But this is one of my favorite songs of all time. I've twisted it. I've made it about looking back on your life and thinking about your young years, as if that was, you know, the summer moments in your youth, and how that fades even in the best of relationships, and how you yearn for those fireworks. I will be with you for real at for the next for fuck's sake. Yes, it will be so live, it will almost be unbearable. It'll be overwhelming how big and live I will be. But until then, I hope you'll enjoy this, my last song. Yes, it is September, of course. Take care of yourselves, wear those masks, look after yourselves and everyone else. Thank you so much for sharing these last 4 shows with me and John Cleary. It has been an absolute pleasure. And I will see you in a week's time. So I bid you adieu, as I will be flying back to America shortly, which just seems really weird, Matt, because I'm in America. And yeah, I'm not in America. Yeah, I'm in America. Yeah, I'm not. It's fucked up, you know. It really is a bit spooky. I will be joining you live from America in a week's time. Until then, I say a very, very Brit-tastic, for fuck's sake, from me, your hostess with the mostest love, I think, probably, of just getting back. Because, yeah, I'm with them, but I am not with them, and I'm with them. You understand, getting back to these two. Yes, for fuck's sake, bring me back to my doggies and my husband. Until then, take care. Love you guys.
Do you remember the 21st night of September? Love was changing the mind of this pretender, was chasing the clouds away. Our hearts were ringing in the key that our souls were singing, as we danced in the moonlight. Remember how the stars stole the night away. And Adi, 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 do you remember? And Adi, 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 dancing in September. Well, Adi, 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 we danced the night away. We danced the night away. My thoughts are with you, holding hands with your heart, but to see you, only blue talks in your December. Remember when love was here to stay. Adi, 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 do you remember? And Adi, 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 and dancing in September. Well, Adi, 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 we danced the night away. Danced the night away. Do you remember the 21st night of September? Love was changing the mind of this pretender, was chasing the clouds. I said, Adi, 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 do you remember? And Adi, 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 and dancing in September. Well, Adi, 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 we danced the night away. Dance the night, dance the night away. Dance, dance, do you remember? Tell me, do you remember?